Good morning. So I've been wanting to get around to making videos again. I know I haven't posted for a while to this channel, but it's just been one of those cases where uh, life gets in the way just a bit. But just because life has gotten in the way doesn't mean my garden has stopped. In fact, anything, it's just got bigger and better. So I wanted to start this video by saying or talking about the type of homesteading that I do. So I obviously follow a lot of homesteaders, both local and international. A lot of them have managed to get big pieces of land and have animals and chaos. And not that there's anything wrong. I mean, everyone does what works for them, and that's great. And I do what works for me. And I've from the beginning sort of focused on doing a vegan homestead, if you will. Um, my main reason for that is I truly believe that if you're going to start becoming self-sufficient, the easiest and most practical way to do that is by focusing on plants and a vegan diet, if you will. I'm vegetarian myself. I've been vegetarian now for 25 years this year, so I personally don't eat animals and haven't for more than 2 decades. But from the growing my own food and looking after my family point of view, it's just way more practical to focus on plants. And when I talk about focusing on plants, I'm not, okay, despite behind me, this is my um, my pumpkin patch. You see it's all fenced in, but that's to keep the monkeys out, because we have 2 troops of monkeys that come through here and they will just eat that. But I mean, besides this area where I grow my pumpkins, um, I focus on perennials rather than annuals, and I try to follow a permaculture process. And the reason for that is I'm lazy. To replant veggies year after year and all of that's a lot of work. So I want to do as little of that as possible and as little work as possible in my garden. But I still want to be able to walk out and walk into any area of my garden and be able to pick food or medicine. And the best way to do that is focusing on a perennial garden, um, and having plants and trees that'll keep on feeding year after year without much work. So the big thing to note about that is annuals, again, you're planting them annually, hence the name annuals, and you'll get food every year. That's a short-term plan. Perennials, a lot of them are trees that take anywhere from 2 to 10 years to start producing. So it's a very long-term plan, and you've got to be in it for the long term. So doing a mix of both is ideal, but try focus more on what you can do. So we're going on year 4 of planting this garden. Year 4 to 5, so somewhere in between there. We've been living on this property for almost 5 years this year, but we only really started planting the year after, so we're closer to only about 4 years of planting the garden, and it's really starting to get somewhere. Our plantains are getting ready to fruit, so have a look at this. So these are actually plantains. We have 3 kinds of bananas, but these are plantain bananas. So they're the starchy ones that you cook. And this year we actually have 3 loads dropping. So we're going to have quite a lot to eat there. And then on that side of the greenhouse where we grow our pumpkin, so there's the pumpkin greenhouse. You see this just died back now because we're in autumn, but it's still going. We have a Ponderland pumpkin. It'll keep on going, and then next year it'll come back to fruiting. Then these are really tall bananas, and they're called lady fingers. this year we had 3 bunches, and they usually only start to flower in the spring, but it's autumn, and that one at the back is actually getting ready to drop flowers. But we have almost 6 trees ready to fruit, so next year we're going to have between 6 and 9 bunches falling, and that is huge. It took us, so bananas fruit when they're about 2 years old. So when they're smaller, this one's going on his first year, and then you see these are the thinner ones. So when they're about 2 years old, they're gonna give you fruit when your bananas are established. And every year, so the banana only fruits once, and then you got to chop it down. And then every year, that one banana tree, so that one banana tree that's giving you bananas, will make 3 new baby trees at the bottom. So for every one banana that fruits, you're going to get 3. And by the next year, those 3 will be ready to fruit. And then they will, because then when they're 2 years old, then they will fruit. And they'll have their babies. And then 2 years later, the next year. So once you have that succession growing. So if you have 1 banana, then the next year you have 3 bananas, and the year after that you'll have 9 bananas, and so and so. That's how it'll go on. Ideally, you'd want to maybe separate them for space, otherwise they start growing on top of each other, which can affect productivity. But if you just want to grow them in a group like this, it also works really well. So yeah, we're expecting a lot of fruiting bananas this year. And we've discovered they don't all flower at the same time. So they really do it in stages, which is quite nice. Yeah. So that's your fastest producing fruit if you want to get started producing fruit quickly. Bananas. Fastest producing fruit for you to get started. And bananas are delicious. These ladyfingers are very tall bananas, so it's very hard to cover them. So you saw on the plantain we have feed sacks over it, and that's just to stop the monkeys and the fruit bats from eating the fruit, because we do have monkeys and fruit bats that do eat the fruit. So if you want to protect them, just to cover them like that, and that is usually enough to keep them away. And you want to leave your bananas to ripen, if possible, on the tree. There's a feed sack there on my plantain, because those lady fingers, when I say to you, they taste like pudding. They taste, and even the texture, it's like pudding, banana pudding. And that's why we grow those, even though they're really torn really hard. I mean, that banana there is easily, it's taller than my house. So it's easily going towards 2 stories high. And you have to be able to get on a step ladder, precariously balanced, to cover them so that your bananas are protected from the wildlife. There is another type of banana that you can get. It's called the Cavalier banana, and it's a very short banana. So we have some Cavalier down here, and then another place in the garden. And this banana is going to be ready to fruit in the next year. But look how tall it is. So by next year spring, but this one should be ready to fruit this year spring. And look how tall it is. It's not a very tall banana, and that's your Cavalier banana. I mean, it'll gain some height, but when it throws fruit and throws flowers, we'd be able to reach it without any problem. So if you want a shorter banana, and this is the one that all the local banana farmers actually farm, are these Cavalier bananas. And they just grow them in rows, and you don't need any fancy step ladders to be able to climb up to cover the fruit, because it's literally within reach. It's quite a smallish banana. So we've also just planted a second batch of these in the front, and those will produce fruit in the next 2 years. But these 2 here will start to produce fruit in the next year, which is amazing. So that's your fastest producing fruit. One of your slowest producing fruits, which you would want to get in the ground as soon as possible because everybody loves it, is an avo. Avos are taking up to 10 years to fruit, but it's worth it. You want to get avo in the ground. And because we're in Natal, we have those beautiful big Natal butter avos. We were lucky when we moved in here. There was 2 young trees already in the ground. And this year is the first year our Natal butter avo is actually has actually produced fruit. She's got 7 whole avos on it. So we've been keeping a very eye, watching for signs of ripening, because if we leave it for too long, the monkeys will get it. It's another joy of living on the coast is monkeys. You get used to it. You learn to work with the wildlife, if you will. So we do focus on plants and growing a plant-based diet. I do a lot of research on what my family needs for nutrition and what plants can replace that and do with that. One of our biggest challenges besides the wildlife is the fact that we live on the top of a hill. So it's wonderful because it means we have ocean view, which is wonderful to have. Who doesn't love a good ocean view? But it also means that we pay the price for the ocean view, which is wind. And we have months of wind where it's very difficult just to go outside and spend some time outside in the garden. And because of that, you really need to also look at plants that are wind tolerant, and a lot of them aren't. So you need to focus on something that can become wind barriers and are wind tolerant. So that's pretty much what I've done. And one of my favorite wind tolerant trees, which you'll know why when I say what it is, it just creates it's like it's the wind will blow this tree to no end, and it'll just take it in its stride and not having issues. And a lot of farmers in the area farm it as well, and that is coffee trees. So I have currently got 5 coffee trees in the ground. 3 unfortunately are struggling with borer beetle, and they're in one section of the garden, but I have another one in a different section of the garden, and I'll show you her in a bit. She's doing phenomenally well. This is her first year of really producing fruit, and I'm so excited. So I'm just watching the berries very closely, because if the berries go red, they will attract the birds and the monkeys. So I have to try get to the berries before the wildlife, but you don't want them to be on the tree for too little amount of time, otherwise your actual coffee beans will just shrivel up. They're not strong enough, they haven't developed enough. So it's finding that balance between making sure the coffee beans have developed enough and reaching it before the wildlife does. So let me just show you, here's my avo. So there she is. So that's about 2 stories high now, and you can see she's a smallish tree, and she's just developed fruit for us for the first time this year. Coffee trees. My coffee trees produce quite young, so the smallest one produced just a few flowers, and that even as early as a year old, but it's not like a huge harvest. I mean, you're going to get like 5 berries, but between 3 to 5 years old. So this tree I'm going to show you is about 3 to 4 years old now. That's when they can really start to produce, and very wind tolerant, and can have very high yields if that's what you're looking at. So here she is. Here she is. She is my coffee tree. This is one of my babies, and look at those berries starting to come in there. And look how many cherries there are on a single branch. So a young tree like this can produce easily, because I drink a lot of coffee, about a month's worth of coffee. And obviously as she gets older she can produce more, but at least about a month's worth of coffee. So 12 coffee trees, it's not bad. And I've managed to grow one successfully from a cutting. So this year I'm going to be taking a few more cuttings of this girl, and we're going to be doing a few more. Now I was very lucky now. So these are Arabica coffee beans. But this year I was actually, last year, sorry, I was lucky enough to be gifted a indigenous coffee. So South Africa does have an indigenous coffee, and last year, so I was gifted her. Here she is, but so you can see she's still very little, just starting to take off, but that's an indigenous coffee. And I'm hoping that this indigenous coffee is a lot more bug tolerant than the Arabica coffees, because the borer beetles have been taking out a lot of my crops and harvests. I've got very few beans, like off 3 trees last year I got enough beans for 1 cup of coffee, because the beetles really got in there. This girl's been doing very well because she's in a very different part of the garden, and I've been experimenting with different plants as companion plants to make her less susceptible to insects. And I think I might have a theory now, which I'm going to test next year. So I'd be interested in finding out what companion plants I'm going to plant to protect my coffee trees. Keep following me. I'm going to do that in a separate episode. If you want another tree that is going to produce very quickly, here she is. Let me just show you. Pawpaw. Look at this. So we've got both pawpaw and papaya. They only produce for up to 5 years, but they produce when they're young. So we had a lot of pawpaws this year and a few last year. So that means these trees are they're only about 3 years old, and they're going on their 2nd year of producing. So they could start to produce as early as 2 years. So if you like pawpaws and papayas, that is another one to consider. The biggest challenge with these guys, though, is being patient. Because this fruit will take 6 months to develop and ripen. So 6 months. It'll produce fruit twice a year, basically once every 6 months. And it'll take 6 months to develop and ripen, and you just have to be patient and not pick it too soon. Even for green pawpaws that are edible, you still got to wait for it to just slightly start ripening to have a bit of flavor. Otherwise, there is no flavor, just a little bit of bitterness on the skin, and that's it. But yeah, these will produce fruit within 2 years. So these are pawpaws. We have papayas up there as well. And then this is one of the trees that was gifted to us just before we left Joburg and came to KwaZulu-Natal. And that's a loquat tree. And this year, she produced a few fruit last year, very little. But this year, she's just packed full of flowers. And she's going on about 6 or 7 years old. Look at that. But she's been in the ground for about 4 years. And now she's producing flowers, and we're going to have some delicious winter fruit for the first time. So some trees just got to be patient, give them time. And when those first few years go by and things start getting established, then you're going to start getting more fruit. And that's the goal. You put it in the ground and you wait, and you be patient, and you look after it. It takes time. You can put some fast growers in between. You know, we've planted granadilla. It's only now starting to take off. 2 to 3 years it's starting to take off. Got the first flowers, but they're just dropping. It won't produce fruit this year. It'll just produce flowers and drop. Next year we should start getting granadilla, but the granadilla is taking time to establish. In between the granadilla, though, in the meantime, we have shushu and air potatoes, which are fast growers and fast producers, and we'll have that every year and just let it grow on the fences. So I don't know if you remember or know that I made an earlier video about a section in my garden where I'm just trying to windproof it a bit more, because we, like I said, we live on a mountain, we have a lot of wind. So I started to grow this hedge. There was nothing. If you look at the previous video, there was absolutely nothing, and this is what it looks like now. This hedge is now taller than me. And this is ginger bush, also known as iboza by the locals. So ginger bush, it's a local medicinal plant, but I've planted it for the bees, because even though it looks a bit messy now because I'm on the wrong end where the wind has blown it, on the other end it actually looks fantastic. In the spring it's going to be just a mass of purple flowers and a mass of bees. It's just going to be buzzing here like crazy. So as I mentioned, the wind is still blowing it a lot on the side, which is why it looks a bit rough. On the other side, it looks beautiful because all the leaves are facing that way. So what I've just done is I've just grown a whole bunch of Malabar chestnut trees. I have 9 or 10 seedlings in total. Fast growers, they will produce nuts within 3 years, 3 to 5 years, which is amazing. And they are wind tolerant, which is even more amazing. So behind this row of ginger bush, just to help with that wind barrier, because I really want to protect this part of the garden and make it a little bit more windproof. I'm going to grow a row of those Malabar chestnuts, which are actually a legume, high in protein, and they've got lots of carbs, so they make a really good famine food. If you're looking for a fast growing famine food that your family can consume in times of difficulty, consider trying to get a Malabar chestnut, especially if you're in a tropical or subtropical climate. Most nut trees take a very long time to mature. You're looking at 10 years. We've got macadamias and pecan nuts that have been in the ground forever. Still no nuts. Still no nuts. So they take a while to really mature. But Malabar chestnuts are supposed to mature very fast, and they're very prolific. In one seed pod, you get up to 20 nuts, sometimes 25 nuts. So it's really such a prolific fruiter. And then here's another one. Takes a long time, but again, if you want to increase the nutrition available to your family, especially if you're doing a vegan option like me, this is something you might want in your garden. And that is my jackfruit. So she's going on being in the ground just over a year. You can see she's a bit of a slow grower, so soon she'll be going into 2 years. Been in the ground, but she's barely a meter high. Bit of a slow grower, but once this tree has grown and is producing fruit, it's going to really benefit my family. In the back there's lots of gooseberries. I get a lot of gooseberries every year. Then I've planted this gooseberry here very specifically to protect what I have growing behind there, which is my prickly pear. So while my prickly pear gets established, I have this gooseberry growing around it. The gooseberry's given me a lot of fruit. And that's where we start to talk about also processing the foods that you make. So it's not just about growing the food. If you're going to be growing a lot of food for your family, you also have to learn to process that food, and that takes a lot of time. So gooseberries, I've made probably around 15 bottles of gooseberries this year from my bushes. This isn't the only one. So 15 bottles is a lot. And when I priced them in the supermarket, the cheapest bottle of gooseberry jam I could find was 65 Rand a bottle. So if you do the math, that's a lot of money saved. 65 Rand times 15 is probably somewhere near 1,000 Rand. So in 1 year, I've saved about 1,000 Rands worth of having to buy jam for my family. And that's where you start to see it really come in. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, especially when you're growing annuals, it takes a year to grow some of those things. It takes months and months to grow some things to save a few rands. But if you start calculating that in, I mean, we've had so many pawpaws, we've had to freeze and bottle it. And if you were to buy it fresh, it would have been hundreds of rands worth of pawpaws. So we're saving literally thousands of rands in groceries by just growing our food and doing it as lazily as possible, so that you're not spending a lot of time. You're planting your trees, they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, and then you just get food. Obviously, I do grow things like compost and fertilizers, and every now and then when I remember, I pop out and compost and fertilize my plants. But yeah, so my recommendation is consider going vegan, vegetarian in your homesteading, because it's just more practical. And if you have animals, if you have animals are a lot of work. They need a lot of care and treatment and understand. Like, if you start having animals, you need to understand every animal has this different kind of diseases and health issues and problems and needs special care in certain ways. And it becomes very time consuming and a full-time job. So especially if you still want to be able to make money on the side doing something else, if you're going to start homesteading with animals, it's going to be very difficult. We do have a goat, but wouldn't get her as a homestead animal. She was just a rescue. And we had the space. So she's a rescue and she produces primarily manure for us. And we love her, but she's a lot of work. And understanding goats and their diseases and their challenges, especially with the latest foot and mouth outbreak, it's a lot of work and a lot of heartache. A lot of heartache. And then you've got to be able to slaughter those animals if you're going them for meat, which is, if you're able to do that, and if that's something that you're okay with, then I'm not going to judge you. It's just not a choice that I personally prefer to make. And here's another one. So this one I had to learn to be patient with, and that is my dragon fruit. So I've trimmed her back. That's why she's looking a bit sad, because I grew some cuttings. But look at that, my first fruit. Yeah, she's coming along nicely. Now the thing about dragon fruit is there's only 1 or 2 strains that are self-pollinating. You need more than one dragon fruit to produce flowers in order to have fruit. But I seem to be blessed and have a self-pollinating variety, and I say that because this is the only flower that showed up this year, and she's produced a fruit. So she is self-pollinating, which is amazing. But she's also going on 4 years old. Dragon fruit they might make flowers after 2 or 3 years, but they won't necessarily produce fruit before they are 4. So there she is. There's her first fruit to celebrate her 4th birthday. And because we're in the subtropical climate, she'll flower once more later on in the year. In colder climates, most of the dragon fruit would have been done with their fruiting and flowering for the year already. But because I'm wearing a long sleeve today. This is like literally the first time I'm wearing a long sleeve, and it's really a t-shirt thickness this year, and it's beginning of April, but it's not going to really get cold here before spring. August, September, then we'll feel the cold. Maybe by October, really windy and cold. But for now, it's still warm, and it will be warm for a few more months. June, July is the best time to come here for a holiday because it's still warm. We have whales, so you can do some whale watching. If you want to, you could swim. Don't recommend it because it's also the sardine season, so the shark nets are taken down. So if you want to swim with the sharks, good luck. But it's beautiful. The weather's beautiful. The ocean is beautiful. You can partake in all the sardine run celebrations if that's your thing. And you can see whales and dolphins and that. And that's the middle of winter. June. Father's Day weekend is usually the best time to come. And it's warm and beautiful and really the best time of year. The ocean looks beautiful. And you get away from that ice cold winter that you're usually busy having up in the other regions of South Africa. So yeah, that's just my little update. I think I was thinking of making more videos, but you're not just growing food, but you're also processing it. The different kinds of trees that I have growing in my lazy perennial garden that allow me to feed my family. I could show you the sort of things I'm looking for. And every time I want to grow something specific for my family, I start researching what trees can I use or get hold of. And I've really discovered some amazing gems. I mean, I never heard of a Malabar chestnut until I was chatting to a local friend. He's also a grower and he helps teach the communities how to grow food, which is amazing. And yeah, a fast growing nut that is wind tolerant is just perfect. So that's where I am. I don't know if you can see the ocean in the background. I can hear it because we're going into winter and she's always loud. Yeah, there she is. Got my ocean view in the background. So I'm going to go in now. I have my morning coffee, feed my goats, and yeah, get started for the day. And we're going to start talking about things, not just about growing all this food, because growing all this food is the lazier, easier part. I'll show you what I do and how I do things, but I also have to process that food. And how do I process it so what I'm growing doesn't just end up in the compost at the end of the day, but actually can last my family for months while we wait for the next harvest to come along. So if that's something that you're interested in, so vegan homesteading and how to grow and process your own food, then stick around and hopefully we can learn from each other, because I'm also always constantly learning. I practically know nothing. I'm completely self-taught when it comes to these things, from making my own fertilizers and compost to growing my own plants, discovering new and interesting plants, which just fascinates me to no end. It's I have such a curious mind. I like to know how things work, and I'm a bit extreme. So, for example, I will find out how to do something completely from scratch. If I want to grow my own food, what does my family eat? My family eats bread. Okay, so how can I grow bread, basically? And then I just work it back until I have a whole concept of how to be able to grow bread in my garden. So should something happen, I can walk out and do that. If I want to grow pasta, what pastas can I grow? Stuff. So that's some food for thought. If you think about what does your family eat, and then how can you grow that? I mean, I go so extreme as I will grow my own yeast, which sounds weird, but if you want to grow your own yeast for baking bread, because that's a part of it, then there's a whole process to it. So I go really from the extreme of making foods from scratch. I don't just make foods from scratch. I grow the ingredients to make it from scratch in the kitchen. So if that is something that you're interested in seeing my process of how I figure these things out, give me a like and follow and subscribe to my channel, and yeah, come and learn with me. And if there's anything that you can share or impart or recommend that I look at, let me know. And I'm really eager and keen to learn as well as we go along. So thank you, and see you soon.